We are streaming live on YouTube right now. This is our pre-show. We're going to start the show right away. So here we go. We're starting the show in 3, 2, and 1. Hi, everyone. Welcome to LectoraLive, your inside track into Lectora. Today, it's all about voices. Voices, e-learning, and more. Here we go. And we're back. One of the things that's really important in e-learning development and media development on the whole is having good sound and good voices. And with us today, we've got two gentlemen from a company that I know, and I know people who work with them. It is GM Voices out of Atlanta, Georgia. Hi, guys. We have with us Marcus Graham. He is the CEO of the company, and Jay Steinworth, who is the Director of Business Development. Hi, guys. How are you today?
Great.
Fine.
Good to be here.
I'm glad you guys could make it. And Jay, we met at the Lectora User Conference about a month ago.
Yes, that was my first Lectora User Conference, and it was really quite engaging, and I learned a lot. And it's a great meeting there. That's fun.
It was, and you were definitely doing. I'm not saying this because the owner of the company is next to you, but you were doing a very good job of meeting people, and that's how we met at the show, and it was fun talking and everything else there. Oops, sorry about that.
That's what I do best, is talk to people. That's good.
Yeah, Jay's good. Mr. Biz Dev, and he goes all over the country, all over the world, and Europe too, to conferences and shows all the time. So he's always out there doing it.
That's great. No, that's actually really good. Now, how did you guys get started in the business with GM Voices?
If you go back about 30 years ago, I was dabbling with voiceover. Prior to that, I had worked in college radio at Georgia State University and really fell in love with audio production and voiceover and that type of thing. And then I got involved in radio for a little while, and I was always kind of dabbling with voiceover. Then the early 80s, I noticed that the recordings on most phones didn't sound good. They were, thank you for calling. We are not available to take your call, that kind of thing. And so I went to my buddy's studio and recorded it, and I'd call the company and say, hey, I can make your recording sound better. And then I would play a sample for them of what they had and then what I did in my buddy's studio, and it kind of got started from there.
That's great. Now, you have some really good talent on board. I've seen, I've heard a lot of the voices that you guys have, and one of my friends, Linda Joy, just said she's on the roster now with you guys, so I was pretty happy to hear that. How do you go about finding such good talent?
Well, it's gotten a lot easier over the years. We've been doing it for so long, but in the early days, it was mainly voice talent, voice actors that were here in Atlanta, and then over time we expanded the geographic boundaries, I guess, because with ISDN technology we could do voiceover sessions really, most cities around the world, and so it expanded dramatically, and then basically we were looking for different sounds that people had, because as a provider, we wanted to go to our customer and provide multiple voices so they could pick the voice they thought was right for their brand and their messaging. And so that's how we kind of got started, and we grew. Today, I think we've got a little over 900 voice actors that we work with and through our organization. And but it's there's some voices that sound similar to ones that we already have, so we would be less likely to build them into our system. But we got a pretty good diversity.
Well, also, I noticed that you do one thing that a lot of people don't offer, and that's you have full international coverage too, different languages, different talents around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you from a history perspective, the way we got into that is in the early days, in the 80s and 90s, voicemail companies needed voice prompts for their systems, and we began to do that kind of work for them. And we would do it in English, and then they would sell a system in Mexico or up in Canada, and they say, hey, we need Spanish, we need French Canadian, and then we sold some in Europe, and they would come to us, and so we sought out those voices, and then of course translation capabilities to be able to do that, because we just wanted to be able to provide a solution to the technology provider, so no matter where they sold their product, we could help them localize it, and that became a big part of our business today.
What part of the business do you see as one of the largest growing segments?
We're doing a lot of international languages for companies that are producing e-learning type applications that they're providing through partners in other parts of the world. And it's really hard to do that effectively in individual countries. If you're selling products in 20 countries, for example, it's very hard to do that. But we actually have talent and translation, localization experts that we work with all over the country. So no matter where they need to take their multimedia to support their product sales, we can easily take their English multimedia or video, and then we can sync it and make it work with really any language. And so that all they have to do is to give us the English, and then we can provide it to them in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 languages if they need it, if they've got
nice.
Worldwide distribution.
Yeah, that's really nice. Not a lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are doing the local stuff, and then they're looking desperately for people somewhere. And it's different because they don't do what you're doing in terms of matching the sounds and getting everything so that it's synced up. That's a nice service, nice offering that you guys do.
Yeah, we try to be a complete solution for our customers, and to have all the localization and to have voice talent resources from all over the world as a one-stop shop, and try to keep that economical, and it's been working well for us. It's something that we really put a focus on about 10 years ago, to build out our localization and voice talent resources with every language.
Yeah, and I was surprised when you said that is one of the largest growing segments. Something you don't think about when you're dealing with local companies or anything else. You start getting into the multinationals, it's not just English. They do a lot of times it is English, but it's also 10 other languages, depending where they're at. We've had occasional needs to do that with 3 or 4 languages. Usually it's French, Spanish, maybe German. And it can be trying at times. So it's easier to have somebody like you do it than us have to go, okay, now we haven't done those languages before. What do we do?
Yeah, a lot of the examples of how we'll get new relationships started is a lot of times doing the typical languages: Spanish, French, Canadian, German, French, and the like. Those are pretty easy to do, but a lot of times when the customer comes to you and says, I have to have Yupik or I have to have Sinhalese, these are languages that typically most companies aren't really set up to do, and because of the volume of work that we do, we do over 100 languages and dialects now, and we can readily do those pretty easily, quickly, and economically, and so that's a big part of our value proposition to the market.
Now, because there may be some voiceover talents watching this right now, how would they go about applying to become a voiceover talent with your organization?
So our situation is a little different. We really partner with the voice actors, and so what we do is let me go through the process of how you would submit a demo. Every month we get together, the creative team, and listen to all the demos that have been sent to us by voice talent all over the world. And then, so we listen to those, we grade them, we identify them, and then we see which are the ones that we think might fit in our current mix of voice actors, typically that maybe has a different sound or you can go to animation. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it, and then we will say, okay, let's talk to this voice talent, or we'll thank everybody for submitting a demo. But then we go through, and if we think they've got the right sound, then we'll call them up and talk to them and tell them a little bit about our business and how we operate, and that we'd like to invite them to do an audition. And in the audition, we go in and act like we're doing a real job, so that they actually go through all the paces of the things that we do, the types of direction that we would want to be able to do for a client, and then if they can do those things, then we say, okay, this person has really got the skills, they got the sound, we can actually put them into our team. Then we get into a business discussion of how we do business day in and day out. And if we're able to do that and come to an agreement with how we operate on the business side, then we would work them into our system, would come up with a promotion of sorts so that our sales team could present the voice when it comes up for when that particular voice or language comes up. And so we're doing that every month. And, you know, it's always, there's always a lot of talent samples coming in, and we like getting them because we always need them.
That's good. And it's amazing what, you know, when you do that, what appears every so often. You get somebody to go, wow, that was a great voice. I needed that one. And a lot of times, I believe in they just happen to show up at the right time. It's like, you know.
Also, too, the reason that we started doing that, when I started originally, I was the only voice talent. But I could tell that a lot of times people didn't, if I was going out and meeting with them face to face, they didn't want to say they didn't like my voice. They want to hurt my feelings, right? and so voice is very subjective.
Yep.
And then, so what we do is we're really about the process. So we're not married to the voice. Now the voices are very important, but ultimately it's up to the client. Somebody at the client site has to ultimately say, hey, that's the voice we want to use for X amount of reasons, branding and so forth. And then they have to choose that voice. And so what we do is to provide options to make that easy. So that's one of the values that we bring to the table is we give you multiple options, and then all these voices are vetted. They can perform. They're under contract with us, and then so we can really do this stuff very quickly. All the business stuff's handled. All the technology stuff is handled, and it works. Works pretty well.
Well, Marcus, that sounds like a good process all the way around. And you know, one thing people don't understand about voiceover is what you sound like in person may not be what you sound like on a microphone.
Oh, yeah.
It's very different, or what kind of microphone you're using, or what kind of preamp and all that. I've told people, look, when you hear a voiceover talent off mic, you may not recognize them. It's different. Even if they sound very normal and natural, it's a different tone. And a lot of times people go, really? That's the same person? Yeah, but put them on a mic, it's totally different. Now you've got, you know, your voice is enhanced a little bit by the electronics, by the acoustics and everything else. Now, you guys are in one of your studios right now. What makes a typical studio for you?
Well, interestingly enough, only about 7% of the sessions that we record every year on a yearly basis is the talent really in our studios here in Atlanta.
Right.
So 93% of the time, the talent is in LA, New York, Tokyo, London, Toronto, and places like that. And the way it works for lay people, we have ISDN lines is what they're called, and TV and radio stations have been doing this for years. And so if we have a talent that's operating out of New York, for example, and she has a studio, she's talking into the microphone, and it goes down these banded ISDN lines, then it comes to our facility here in Atlanta, and then we take that full bandwidth audio, which was compressed where the microphone was, and then it expands over here. So we're recording real time while the talent's talking in New York or any of these other cities that I mentioned. And so what it did is it really took all the geographic boundaries away from recruiting voices, because you can be anywhere. And like I said, 93% of the orders that we process, the talent is located somewhere other than Atlanta.
That's great. So you find that the ISDN lines, I've known people monitor via ISDN, but I haven't really heard too many recordings. So you're getting that good a quality out of ISDN for recording.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole industry based on that in the radio space. For example, the guys that do, and this is about the specialization of voiceover, the guys that do the booth announcing for TV stations, like tonight at 7:30 on ABC, yada, 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 and they do promo for a TV station. All those guys work out of studios, and they got the big voice, you know, and they send that, they record it and then do it for TV stations all over the country. And they've been doing that for 25 years or more.
That's great. Yeah, and ISDN's still around. Somebody asked me the other day, "What's ISDN?" I go, it's a format that's still around. Everybody's thinking of cable.
Actually,
and
there's something happening on that now, because we're moving to IP. We're doing more sessions with IP. There's an IP version of that now. We've been testing it for several years. It's really gotten good enough to where you can use it. And then even sometimes in some countries don't have ISDN, so it's problematic in a lot of countries. So there, what we do is we'll direct the session with Skype. So So because we have to make sure the talent records it or says it properly, and then at the end of the session, they're just recording on a local drive, and then they upload it to us after the session.
So Skype, yeah, that's kind of how we do our shows. We do everything with Skype.
Yeah.
Not the most perfect environment, but it works pretty well, and you get fairly good sound quality out of it. What we do is, I showed you pre-show, we use our, right around here, we use, you can't see it from here, but let me switch over here. Here in our little audio bank of things, those are compressors, limiters, and gates, which means basically we take the audio coming from Skype and make it sound just a tad better. It cleans out some of the things in Skype that aren't as good, and for the most part, it doesn't sound too badly.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the technology since Skype came out, it was inexpensive long distance, but the quality wasn't there. But it's over. Skype gets better every year. So the technology is continuing to get better.
We always say Skype gets better and worse every year. It's both.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they do a pay plan where you're not stuck with the average bandwidth because sometimes it just depends on what's going on. It can be slow, or it can be spotty. Though for the most part, we're lucky. We have Fios in here, which is the fiber optic network, and it's pretty quick. We have, I think, 300 megabits up and down. It's fast for the most part. We can go up to 1 gigabit, and we're thinking of upgrading that because it's available. Really, that's the main reason.
Well, you always got to have the biggest and best and fastest.
Yeah, it's fun. It's important. Like my wife says, do we need it? Yep, absolutely.
Of course.
It's one of those things we do need. Well, we have enough people, and sometimes when everybody's busy, we've got about probably 15 people total working on things, and sometimes we notice a little bit of a lag, especially if you're doing large media files. So bigger is better.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that? Do you ever have problems locating voiceover talent, or do you usually, with the large library of people you have, do you have a pretty easy way to solve people's problems?
Yeah. You mean as far as total voice selection?
Right, so that when people come to you, that they have I notice you have a great selection of voices, and I only saw part of it. I saw probably 10 people.
Sure. And we specialize in helping companies craft a persona or identify the persona that they want for their company or for their project or for their video. And that's an important professional services component that we offer as a voice studio. And it is subjective, and there's a little bit of science you could bring into the equation as well. And there's economics, and there's a business case as well. And we try to bring it all to the table, the economics as well as the high quality, and it really comes down to the performance at the end. And creating good audition samples is a good way to bring that to life.
So when people have a project need, let's say there's a company, a large multinational, they need to do 20 courses, for example. They would come to you, and then you'd negotiate how much, who, and everything else. It sounds like you help them through the process as well, not just like what we call a body shop here, just throw a voice at it, you're done. It sounds like there's more of a process with what you guys do.
Yes, it's like I just explained. There's a lot involved on the front end before you even go to record. We help with the scripting, make sure everything is all questions are answered ahead of time as much as possible. It helps with lessening the studio time, and there's a lot involved in helping them create the type of production looking for, help them achieve their objectives. And I don't know, what do you got, Marcus?
Well, I think, it's all customer focused. So it's really about, and we'll have clients that have different levels of engagement where they want to get their hands all in everything that we're doing, coach the talent, be involved in auditioning talent and that kind of thing. And then the vast majority of clients that we use, particularly when it comes to the international languages, is they just throw it over the wall to us because they know that we'll handle it and do it effectively. Oftentimes, particularly when it comes to translations, a client may be doing, let's say it's German, for example, and there's a gal that works there that lived in Germany, grew up in Germany, but's been over here for 7 or 8 years, and then so we'll provide the translation, and then it'll come back and say, oh, there's a problem with it, and then we say, well, what was the problem? And if that's communicated to us, then we go through and explain why we did it the way we did it, and these are professional translators and linguists that we're working with. So what ends up happening is the client just throws it over to us because they know that we're going to do it effectively because we have all of those quality controls built into our process. And just to give you an idea, in 2015, we recorded 6.3 million words in over 4,000 recording sessions. So we do about 80 sessions a week. And it's a pretty busy place around here. So the process is king. And that's how we work with very good talent, so real high quality, but we manage the process by bundling these sessions and really keep the cost low, and then with real fast turnaround. And that's really what our clients like. It really works well.
Yep. And I've been here 14 years, and we're up to now. We have 6 account managers managing the front end of the business, and a bunch of folks in between to make sure we're doing everything right before we get to the studio. But I think where our success has come from the focus on customer service and being able to meet our clients' needs and their objectives. More importantly, if they need updates on for a small segment of a project or a video or e-learning project, we have an economical way to make sure we can get the same voice actor in, even if it's years down the road. We can pretty much guarantee the same quality, both from a performance as well as a production standpoint.
Now, one thing that in the e-learning world is difficult sometimes, especially when you're doing multi-language, is the company, let's say it's our company. We may, like for example, some of us know Spanish. So we can do Spanish. We're okay. We can QA what's going on with the voiceover talent against the script. So that's okay. French, not so good. Only one person knows French, and she hasn't done that in 30 years, so doesn't know French that well. German, nobody knows German in here. What would happen there? Do you folks offer also the service to QA the script against what the voiceover talent is doing? Because that's a part that everybody struggles with, that you can have it recorded by somebody, but how do we know it's right?
Sure. That is our responsibility. We try to, we ensure authenticity, both on the localization and translation side, because you have the same aspects. Maybe they don't have an expert or a linguist in that language. Same thing with the voice piece. That is on us. We do like to try to engage the customer as much as possible to get some buy-in on their side, and but we do the QA here. We've been doing this quite a bit. There's a lot involved in post-processing audio in a different language, especially for a production department who may not know the language, but we do have good ways to make sure we're doing it right and QA all the audio before it goes out the door.
That's good. Yeah. That's actually one of those.
It's kind of like I talked about before. It's ultimately they throw it over to us, we do it. And, it's important to note that doing languages is not an exact science. And so there's a good bit of art involved in it. And sometimes, give you a good example, if you were taking a tennis shoe, you're doing some type of application for a company in Romania that has a tennis shoe. The original tennis shoe that really took over in the market in Romania, the brand name of it became a generic name for it. So we call them sneakers. Right. And you know what they call tennis shoes in Romania? They call them Adidas.
Adidas. That's true.
Adidas was the first one to the market, and that's what everybody came to reference it. And so Nike comes in and wants to say, how would you promote this? And they'd say, well, we'd say the Nike Adidas is really good because that's the word for tennis shoe over there. And there's another example, particularly in Romania, is a Post-it note. They own the market, and then a company called BIC brought in a Post-it note-like product. And then the translator tried to explain that, well, we have to call this, it's a BIC Post-it note, which would drive the branding people crazy, right?
Yeah, yep. It's like Kleenex. You go all around the world, people have Kleenex.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you pass a Kleenex? It's a Kleenex.
Well, also too that the technology is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
If you're talking about somebody that knows, Arabic, for example, and they've been in this country for 2 years, there's a lot of technology that they're not even going to know what they call over there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why you've got to have relationships and people in local markets, because if you don't, you're not going to be you're not going to be talking with a local market credibility. And so it's just really key. Otherwise, you sound like those silly Americans coming over here trying to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, this is great. I think you guys are running a great business from everything it sounds like. And some of the services you're offering are priceless. If you haven't done that kind of localization work out there, it's not easy. You gotta know what you're doing. And there's a lot of companies who fail trying to do it as amateurs. And it's one of those. If you don't understand the languages, you're gonna open that little black hole of issues. And when you get sucked in, you won't enjoy where you wind up. So it's a good thing. So I think you guys are offering a very good service in terms of not only the pre and post production. So that's very good stuff. And I've met a lot of other voiceover companies that don't do this. So that's one thing I find very special about you guys. And they're not paying me to say this, by the way.
Well, we don't consider ourselves a voiceover company. We're more of a professional services company that specializes in voice production as one of our pieces, and for many different types of areas.
Yeah, and I think it shows. So,
thank you. Yeah, it's important to note about half of our revenue is non-English.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm. Actually, maybe more than that now.
Slightly more than that, yeah.
Yeah, and it may even grow more in the future the way things are going. So that'll be.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the world's getting smaller because of technology, and traveling by air is so easy now. And if you're not doing business in other parts of the world, I guess it depends on what you do. But ultimately, there's the big part of the profit and success in companies nowadays is being able to take their products and services to other parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just play that part on that local market, presentation.
That's great. If people want to get a hold of you for whatever reason, whether to be a voiceover talent or to hire your services, what's the best way to do that?
Reach our website. We're gmvoices.com. If you click on Contact Us, you have everything there, and you'll see a link right away where it says, if you're a voice talent or want to be a voice talent, click here. And Marcus had put together a real good URL with resources for voice actors and wherever they may be coming from, either novices or brand new or well-seasoned voice actors. We have a lot of resources there and some videos that Marcus put together.
That's great.
Yeah, I got a point that might be worth mentioning for your audience. Because a lot of times we get people that call us and want to be voice actors, right? And having been doing this for quite a few years, I would ultimately tell them, well, here's what you need to do. You need to send me your demo. And they say, well, I don't have a demo. I'm like, well, okay, well then, we really couldn't consider them, because you'd have to have a demo to be in the business, to be good enough to be able to do work for us, right? And so I said, go create a demo. And these are some resources, some coaches and such that you can call to help you do that, and then send us your demo when you get it done. And but over the years, how many people have gone into study, they go into voiceover study, and gotten a coach to help them put a demo together, then to package it with all the marketing and stuff that comes with that, and then send it back to us for us to hire them as a voice talent. How many demos do you think I've received over the last 25, 30 years?
Oh gosh, thousands.
One. No, I'm serious.
One.
I mean, because what happens is people go out and try to learn. You think you're making a lot of money by just talking, and that's true.
Yeah.
But this is not a simple. It's performance art. It's acting.
It is.
It's being like we were talking about before we started about. You got to be a good reader.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be able to read. If I have a session with a talent's going to read 6,000 words, we can't be redoing things over and over again. It's just not practical. And so they got to learn how to read right. It's about tonality. It's about character and intonation and those kind of things. And there's a whole lot of things you got to do. So what I'm getting at, it's not easy. And and that one that I got wasn't a very good one. So
No, and that's really true. A lot of people, somebody tells them, "You have a nice voice."
Yeah.
Really? I'm going to be a star. And no.
I I go to a lot of trade shows, and inevitable, someone is asking me, how do I become a voice actor? And they give me the card, and I got to give them the URL. And sometimes, they actually follow through, and I'm not sure how far along they get to working in the back of the production house here, but it happens quite a bit.
Yeah, those are really good points. It is not easy to become a good voiceover star. One thing I would tell people, if you really want to do this and you're starting out and you've done nothing, go to LibriVox, read books for free, get practice. You're not going to get paid for it. You're doing some good, but you're also getting practice.
Yep.
And practice is worth.
Also, too, you can go on the web, and there's a gazillion voice talent demo sites online. And what I would encourage people to do is to go through and listen to the voice actors that are out there now, and just close your eyes and listen to it. And then, which ones do you like? Which ones are easy to listen to? That's really, really the key. And then those are the kind of folks that you want to, if you want to be a voice talent, you would aspire to, be or to learn from them.
Well, your story reminds me of, I've probably met 30 to 40, maybe even 50 people throughout the last 20 years saying, I want to be a voiceover talent. What do I do? Well, first thing, spend at least an hour to 3 every night reading out loud, practicing, record yourself, and practice. And they look at me like, really? Yeah. Well, that's a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I go here, and some of them I've met in person. I go, here, read this. I give them a page of script, and they're like, "Oh, the word." What? I go, nope. You got to practice. You got to do this naturally. Looking and reading at the same time takes practice. It's like reading a teleprompter at the same time. It's not easy. You got to be really good at this stuff.
You do see people every now and then. I've seen a few times where somebody comes on and is just a novice and they're just really good.
Yeah.
And but that's really quite unusual.
Yeah. And of all those people, I have a similar story. I had a friend of mine who actually went and practiced every day for an hour to 2. And he actually got a lot better. And he's been reading LibriVox, and one of these days he's going to start breaking out. He's Australian.
That's cool.
And but there aren't many. A lot of people, when they go, I have to do all that much. No, I don't want to do it. I just want to be famous.
That's it. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right?
Yeah. Get an agent. What's an agent?
Or we'd be out of business.
Yeah,
that's right. Now, you guys aren't going to be out of business for a long time. Well, Marcus and Jay, it's been a real pleasure having you on. We're going to have your website and other information in our show notes, so people can go, right from the video, can go to the links. And I look forward to doing some work with you in the future too. I really like what you're doing, and the approach you have. It's complete, which is nice.
Well, thanks. It's certainly great to be here, and thanks for sharing this with us. This is a great program you've got, and I want to dig in to learn more about some of your other podcasts and things. This is really interesting topics that you're covering. So
sure, really cool. We have several of them. More are coming. I'll send you some. We can talk offline too.
Sure.
Actually, hang on for a second. If you guys are watching, please subscribe, and we will be back next week. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I think we're. I trust.